In this example, what we're doing is we're going to create some assemblies, and what this is how your cross-section of your road looks. So from our Home tab, we're going to go to Assembly and Create Assembly, and you can give it a certain name, like we'll call this a 2-lane, and it can be a basic assembly. We'll click OK, and where it asks where you want to put it, make sure you know where you're going to put it. These are pretty small in scale compared to the rest of your site, as you can see. So that red dot, that's my assembly. Make sure you know where you put it. If we zoom into our assembly and click on the line, we're going to get a new tab, an assembly tab that opens up. And we want to click on Tool Palette. This is where we're building our cross section. So the first thing we're going to pick are lanes, and there's a couple of different lanes. You want to make sure in this basic tab, you don't want to use any of these. For things that we're going to do later in the cul-de-sac, the basic lanes and the basic curbs do not work. So we want to go into the regular lane section, and it depends what you want your assembly to look like. So, there's a couple of good ones. The lane inside super or the lane outside super, either one of those work pretty good. We're not going to have a median, so these wouldn't work. I'd say pick either the lane inside super or the lane outside super for what we're doing. So if you pick lane inside super, you'll notice you'll get a property box open up. Well, for our 2-lane road, we definitely, from the center line, we want it to be on the right-hand side. So when you look in the properties box, right is correct. It is a 12-foot wide lane, and a 2% slope from the center line is fine. You'll notice in here too, and we can reduce some of these, this has a pavement depth 1, a pavement depth 2, a base depth, and also a sub-base depth. So if you don't have 4 layers of pavement, you may go in and make this top layer 0, and then let's say the second layer down is 6 inches. We can change that to 0.5. Let's say the next one down is maybe 8 inches. We can change that to 0.67, and then we'll have a 12-inch sub-base. So we can do that to set up our individual layers here. Now, when it's time to build this onto the assembly, we'll zoom back in over here, and when we click on the assembly, you'll see that it's going to put our 3-layered lane, 12 feet wide, out from the center line. So that's good. Now on the edge of your lane, typically you're going to have a curb and gutter. So we're going to go into the curbs tab, and there's a couple of different curbs that you can use. This one says it's flat bottomed valley curb with a gutter sub base. This one has a slope bottom valley curb with a gutter and a sub base. You definitely want one with a sub base. So you can pick either one of these, and I think they'll work okay. Again, we want it on the right hand side of our lane. We're going to put it on the gutter edge. 2% is good. The sub base depth. The sub base depth is going to be the depth to the sub base at the flange point. So, and you can always put this on and then edit it later if you need to. Whenever we zoom in here, we're going to click this upper left hand corner, and you'll see that the sub base here is way higher than the sub base over here, and we want them to line up. So if you go back into properties, the sub base depth, we had a 6-inch and then an 8-inch for our top 2 layers. So that's going to be a total of 14 inches, which is going to be 1.167 feet. So if we do our depth to subbase, like the subbase depth, we only have a 1-foot subbase depth. The subbase extension, that's the extension this direction, that's fine. The subbase depth, that was 1 foot because that's what the lanes used. The depth to the subbase at the flange point. We should have some other dimensions in here though that'll make this line up. So again, any of these properties can be edited. Go into properties here. On subbase depth, we want the total depth of our section here is 26 inches. So we'll come in here and we will say that for our curb and gutter, the subbase depth, we want it to go all the way down to 26 inches, which is 2.167 feet. So you'll notice then that takes the subbase all the way down. At the end of the day, what you want is this to be a smooth, continuous line. Now, ideally, you'd probably make your curb a little bit thicker and you'd drop this line down to line up with this one. Or you'd have some different layers of your cross-section here. These are some pretty thick layers as far as cross-section goes. Either way, though, you want it to line up across the top, line up across the bottom, and you definitely want that subbase to continue out underneath your curb, wherever that's at. So the next thing you're going to want to do is put in something called daylight. If you go to the daylight tab, we're going to pick the daylight multi-intercept. And when you click that, we'll go in and click on the top of the curb. And that basically says that from the top of the curb, we are either going to cut or we're going to fill to meet as far out as we need to go to meet existing grade. So this is going to contour our road and our curb and our gutter to meet the existing grade when we set our elevations. So we have half of the assembly built, and I find that it's the easiest thing to just select that half, and then we're going to go to the mirror subassemblies, and it's going to say which point do you want to mirror about. We'll click the center line, and now you have a full 2-lane assembly. Now we also are going to need a half-lane assembly for when we do our cul-de-sac. So we'll go into assembly, and we're going to create a new one. And this one we're going to call half road or half lane or cul-de-sac, whatever you want to call it. We'll say okay. We'll pick a point where we want to place it. Again, make sure you know where that's at. Now on this one, we're going to run the road when we build it along the edge of pavement line. So we want our lane to go on the left side and our curb and our gutter to go on the right side. So when we put in our lane, again, we can pick that inside lane super. When we go into properties here, we don't want to pick it on the right side of the center line. We want it on the left side. And we want it to go in a positive slope from the center line upwards. Again, we're going to pick a 0 top pavement. We can do a 6-inch. We want it to line up for sure with the other one. I think we did an 8-inch on our base course and left it at a 1 foot there. So again, when you go back in here and click on your lane, this time it's going to do your lane to the left-hand side of your center line. We're going to go in and do a curb. I think we picked the urban curb and gutter valley 1. So this time we want it on the right-hand side of the center line. And then our subbase depth, remember how we put in the 2.167 before? And then when you come click over here, you should get your curb not lined up. It's definitely lined up over here. And if you ever have something that doesn't quite look right, you can always click here and then hover back over your properties box. You can right click on it and say properties. That subbase depth is definitely 2.167. Unless something is off here. That was 6 and 8 is 14 plus another foot is 26 inches. So that should be right. Again, you can always go in and check your properties, and you can see here that should be 6 inches, not 0.6 feet. So when that gets adjusted, it automatically is going to adjust itself in AutoCAD. So now we have everything lined up. That looks a lot better. And again, we're building off the center line with the lanes on the left, the curb on the right. We do want to put a daylight, the multi-intercept again from that top corner to cut and fill to existing grade. And we don't want to mirror this one. This one we're just going to run around the edge of pavement, so that half road looks a little bit different. But that is how you're going to want to build your assemblies or your road cross sections for this project.